Thank you very much for that intro, Tripti. Hi, everyone. My name is Hafsah Jumare, and I am the founder of Kwamana. And today I would like to tell you about my startup journey, and hopefully you'll be able to take some learnings out of it. I'll just start by sharing my screen so I can present this. Okay. Um, Before I move forward, I would like to say that during the Q&A, feel free to ask questions to any of the people that have joined me in this call. Amal is a very well-known founder and startup entrepreneur in Nigeria. She's kind of crossed the line to that success. Asma'u, while she's the head of our tech in Kwamana, she's also a founder herself of a tech platform that teaches kids how to code, especially kids impacted by violence and insurgency. We also have Nathaniel Peterson, who's in strategy consulting for startups. Dolapo, who also just founded her startup and would be able to give you a lot of information around what it's like to get started. So I'll just tell you a bit about me. Like every kid, I wanted to be an astronaut. But I ended up focusing on economics. I studied smallholder farmers at the University of Cape Town, as Tripti said. Uh, so my focus on this was around how do we get smallholder farmers to scale. 70% of the labor force in my country is smallholder farmers, and a lot of those smallholder farmers don't necessarily have the right type of income to enable them to live a good life. I had PhD admissions, like Tripti said. I did my master's, worked at the unit at the University of Cape Town, researching on farmers and uptake of insurance and uptake of credit. How do we get technology to them to help them scale? And then I went on to start writing my PhD proposal, and it just felt too disconnected. It wasn't helping me see the solution. I didn't feel like it was applied enough. So I decided I would go and find a solution. But I was broke, so I actually became a consultant. Uh, Interestingly, I spent a lot of time as a consultant working with companies we were trying to reach this segment of farmers and small businesses, helping them optimize, helping them get them to take up credit and insurance. There's this entire movement in the developing world to get farmers capital, insurance, cash transfers, investments, to get them to grow, to get them to take their own way, to channel their own paths out of poverty. So I founded Koamana to identify the business cases around these issues and then to develop technologies that would actually close those gaps. I started my entrepreneurship journey like everyone. I did my research on how to become a successful startup, what to do. I spent a lot of time business planning. I did the identification of the problem. I had already done that before in my past work. I did the ideation on the solution. So I had focused all my energy on saying, okay, how do we get farmers to take up capital? We had different options. We developed ways to enable them to take up credit that were creative. I had someone that wanted to work with me to help them have their own currencies in their own communities so that they can kind of keep the wealth within those communities and generate capital in that way. I spent a lot of time building the organizational structure. What what should our leadership look like? What should our team um, like breakdown look like? I forecasted our growth, thought about the different value chains we were targeting. It was farmers, it was tailors, it was specifically in different value chains within farmers, onion sellers, different ways to grow within these networks. But in the end, all our planning, all our strategy just went out the door. It wasn't useful. Um, and the thing that we found the most was that we were actually looking at our users as beneficiaries, like the entire development world has been doing for the past few years. They need capital, give them capital, they're poor, that's the only way they can grow. But if you actually think of them as just businesses, what do you want a business to do? You want them first to have demand, and you want them to be able to have the right set of information or the right set of production methods to become efficient. So looking at them as beneficiaries have kind of ruined the the way we treat them, the way we interact with them, the type of technologies we want to give them. And I think that was the first breakdown of our assumption. And like I said, our users, we found, just needed market information to begin with. They needed to know where their buyers were. They needed to know how to do better in their businesses, grow, get demand, be efficient, and then get to capital. So after all of this, we also found that our users just wouldn't pay for whatever it is we were offering them. And a lot of this has to do with them not quite knowing what the value was to them at the beginning. And a lot of it also has to do with trust. So the whole takeaway from this is that I really regret the time I spent, just a year wasted doing research, getting prepped. A lot of my mentors were like, Hafsah, get started. And I thought I was being clever by just doing research, but that ended up not being very useful. So finally, we now have our product. It's called Amana Market. What it does is it links these farmers and small businesses to markets. It's a simple e-commerce platform. We tailored it specifically to this market segment. So you get a lot of people taking models that work in the rest of the world and trying to apply it to this. But we realized an e-commerce platform that wasn't tailored to them wasn't usable for them. We also give them information. We currently do this in very crude ways. Everything is still coming together. But that's one thing that we're also offering them now. After all of this, after getting through the market, getting the demand, getting the right information, we then help them access capital, loans, investment, what type of capital support do they need to go. So that's the next thing we do. Amana Market, like I said, looks like a typical e-commerce platform. It's not. The small businesses and farmers are able to come on and transact as a cooperative or as an individual. They are able to find buyers, the buyers rate them. But the most distinct thing is, like I said, we don't charge them. We don't charge our users, they don't pay. We generate our revenue through the ethical sales of data to people that are actually trying to target them, financial institutions, NGOs, those types of business entities. So we piloted in December. We rolled out Amana Market, and during our pilots, we kept getting feedback from the small businesses and farmers that, well, this doesn't quite work for us. So we had to pull the product off the market and come back with something else in January. And by March, after all our cluster mapping, like, we had done a lot of research. We identified all the business networks, the leaders that worked in these communities. We had pushed our products to them, but we only had 800 small businesses on our system. But something happened. COVID happened in March, and all of a sudden we grew by about 1,000%. And it just showed that small businesses needed our service, and we were someone they would come to in their times of desperation where they needed an outlet for their business. We weren't ready for this growth, so we had to face a lot of challenges, but luckily we have a strong team that we work with, and I'm very proud of what we are now, but we weren't always that strong. What I found at the very beginning was I had found the most brilliant people to work with. But the thing is, as long as a person or the people you're working with are not quite aligned with your vision, you wouldn't get too far. There's always going to be the wrong steps taken. So initially, I did a lot of micromanaging, trying to get people to do the right thing, to due to align with the vision, they didn't quite have the same sense of urgency that I had, only because I was thinking, okay, we're going to run out of money. I have my savings in this. So I was thinking, okay, how do we get the solution out fast? But I realized I needed to work really well to align the team with the vision. And now that we have a team that understands what the end goal is, they work and they correct much faster. I do the same. Just learning to take a breath and build people that I can trust. So another thing I did, what they tell you to do as a startup, is find mentors, find advice. So I'm very lucky in that I have a strong network of female role models around me. This is a privilege in my culture. It's not so where I'm from. Um, Women are not the most empowered. We're getting there, but I am privileged in that everyone around me, all the women around me, run agencies. They run businesses. So being this way is the norm. I learned to observe them, how they make decisions, and then I sought advice from them so easily. I didn't need to go too far to get support from them. So as much as I had this network of female role models to tap into, I realized that having a diverse set of mentors is also very important. I know this could be a bit controversial in saying that like, you observe differences between genders, but the reality is this was my experience. And a lot of my female mentors tended to be very careful, be very much strategic about their thinking, about what they would tell me to do, the approaches they would tell me to take. They also took a long time to push me within their network because they needed to understand much more what I was doing, read the process. They were a lot more worried about their reputation. That worked to an advantage for me a lot of the times because thinking strategically helped me not jump and make the wrong choices. So I'm very happy about that. But I also found that having male mentors was very useful for me. So the male mentors were more likely to stick their necks out, push me forward, push me within their networks. They were much more likely to take risks and also be concerned about the perceptions that people had about them. And I would say one thing that I've taken from observing these two groups is that one thing that's missing is working in groups, women are working in groups that I think, like I myself am being very deliberate and pushing forward now. So you find the men that are my mentors, they invest in groups, they take decisions in groups, they distribute their risks. Whereas with the women, it's a lot of more bilateral relationships. So I think right now I'm making an active decision to just try and make networks and make these female groups that push each other forward. Uh, Ultimately, any type of mentor that I find that I have becomes a good mentor to mutual support and understanding. It's never a one-way relationship. Initially, I was always demanding, oh, give me advice, push me in this network, but I have to give something back. It has to be a two-way thing for it to actually work very well. They also respect me enough to understand what I'm doing before they give me advice. They also value my time. So, as a startup, especially in Nigeria, you tend to find a million incubators coming to you, a million people coming to you with mentorship programs. But it's important to identify the people that actually value your time and know that you're a startup founder and you need to have a lot of time to nurture your company. You wear different hats all the time. And the best mentors also believe in my vision, or either believe in me or they believe in both. Um, Ultimately, like building any relationship, it takes time to find the right fit. It takes time to understand how to work with a mentor. So another thing I did was I made a very nice pitch deck and started pitching to founders. And one thing I found was that it didn't matter how cool I thought I looked from my end. It mattered who the founders were and how I actually approached them. So a lot of these like founders, we forget that they're like customers that you're selling to. So you need to think of them as that, right? You need to first be on their radar. They need to know about you. You need to demand their time. You don't get airtime on the radio and just put out rubbish. You need to actually make sure that the time you get from them is used well. So I'm going to give an example of like how I wasted time and lost a pitch once. Um, so I was in this pitch kind of contest with a bunch of other people, and I was supposed to be the second to go, and the first person that was supposed to pitch was not there. And I was asked to go on right away. I didn't have my deck queued up, and the pitch was 5 minutes. And they were like, "Oh, we're running out of time. Can you get your pitch up?" I'm trying to get my pitch up, and I felt guilty for wasting people's time. So I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to pitch without a deck." And I went on to pitch without a deck, and everyone else that came after me had the like very nice presentations. Uh, and afterwards, I spoke to one of my advisors, and they were like, "Well, that was very dumb of you to do. Why didn't you demand like your time? You had their time, you just wasted it." And I think I'm learning to not be apologetic about people's time and to be a lot more selfish about the approaches I take. Um, I've learned to pitch and fail and ask for feedback. That is the only way I know what I've been doing wrong. I've pitched to a lot of people. They've given me advice. Some people just shut me down completely. But getting feedback from them helped me a lot to grow. And it gives you a sense of closure to know what you did wrong. Again, get into the trust network. This is like any typical type of customer. They need referrals. People trust if someone knows a product and you're like a product. So that's what I found, that the network effect is actually much more stronger than anything else. You get a million startup competitions. People enter into contests. A lot of the times, those things are like lotteries. You don't really stand a chance because there are like 10,000 other applicants. So it helps to just use the network you have or get into their network. And I've learned the hard way, and especially with COVID, to only count money in the bank. So I think through our experience through COVID was that we grew, but then our sources of funding also dried up. And that kind of shows that like you need to be prepared to always be in a position to conserve money. Sorry, it's raining heavily here, so I'm not sure if you can hear me that well. So you need to be able to be in that position to plan properly, to not expect anything from people. So the next thing I want to talk about is biases that people face. So a lot of the times people talk about how women are not getting investments, how funders don't respond to women that well. The truth is, I don't know if I'm discriminated against. I don't know if people think about my tribe, religion, gender, or race. I don't know if someone is having a bad day. I don't know if maybe I remind them of someone they don't like. And maybe I have an annoying face to them. I don't know. I can't tell when there's a bias. So I just choose not to deal with it. I choose not to think about it. I move forward. There's always a time trade-off to focusing on these issues. So along the way, I've met different types of people. You'll find yourself facing bullies, especially when you're demanding something from people, right? There's always that power play, and that's something that I think I've become very cognizant of. So I've confronted bullies. When I first started this, I had a partner. I don't have a partner anymore because it didn't make business sense to work with like a bully. I had people that would be one thing and actually say they're one thing, but are actually another. So it's purely relationships that are designed to be extractive. People will try to swindle me, and I've also had people seeking for favors. I think, again, you find yourself asking things from people, and it puts you in a very tricky power position, and you just need to be mindful of those relationships. So what I do is I just set boundaries. The moment something doesn't seem quite right to me, I shut it down. I don't entertain it any further. I have tried to be a dedicated CEO. That's something people always tell you to do. Focus on your business. Everything should be your business. And sometimes it's not that easy. It's not that easy to be on your top form all the time. It's your baby. you come up with this concept, you become obsessed with it. Like that's the first problem. Your emotions are tied to it. It's very frustrating when things aren't moving forward, and they would be very slow, especially as a startup that like doesn't have all the capital in the world. Rejection, constantly being told, well, we can't give you this. We don't think you're the right type of fit for the type of person we're trying to invest in. Depression comes with that. Also, the lack of a safety net. You forget about your savings and focus on bootstrapping and like putting everything into this company. Regrets. I've made choices that I wish I didn't make before that would have put us a bit further. And also insomnia. You don't sleep, and then you get burnt out. All of that happens, and I've learned to just talk to someone. I have someone that I constantly vent to, and that helps me a lot. Um, I've become this person that doesn't have a filter. I just tell all, this is what I'm feeling today. So that has been very useful to me. Ultimately, I've learned my biggest lesson, which is that I just need to put a foot forward. And when I say this, it seems like some motivational speak, or it should be something that should be on a poster. But the truth is, this is what it is. Like, the only way we got here was taking it one step at a time. And with each step, things changed. So I think this is the principle that I stick to, and I'm going to just keep sticking to going forward. I don't want to be stuck. I need to just take what is the next best step to take? So sometimes, like I said, things happen slowly. The process can be very messy. But with each step, everything comes together. Like I'm seeing it even more so now that we have the users on our platform, the small businesses and farmers deriving value from it. We're starting to prove that our revenue model actually works a bit. Our team is doing it, and I'm happy, but it took a long time to get here. So we now have 14,000 businesses and growing, and I am proud of what we have accomplished. Before we go into the Q&A, I'd just like to be the first to ask a question. So we have Amal Hassan here with us. She's, like I said at the start, someone that I've followed over the years. She's done very, very well as a female startup entrepreneur in northern Nigeria. And I'm in this journey, this constant struggle to push our company forward. And we're not quite there yet in terms of having a good, perfect, cushy situation. So I want to ask you, Amal, what happens when you get there, right? Like, what does it feel like, and what are you doing now in terms of how you think about the future?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. It's really great to be here today. Like she mentioned, my name is Amal Hassan. I'm the founder and CEO of Outsource. Outsource is the first international business process outsourcing company in Nigeria. We currently provide different services to companies in UK, US, and Japan, and Africa, of course. I'm sure you know about my journey. I started my career with an IT training center in Kano, northern Nigeria. And at a point, I realized that I've been training a lot of IT professionals and realized that they couldn't get employed. I started researching on BPO. To cut the story short, it took me 8 years to start Outsource. I started it 4 times and failed until I went live June 2016 with an American client. We started with just 10 systems, 10 seats to an American client. And today we are over 850 providing different services. So what we've done after going live, after finally breaking through after those 8 years and starting on by again 4 times, is when we were starting, when I was trying to convince American companies to outsource to a Nigerian company without any experience, when Nigeria is not a known outsourcing destination, each and every one of them was telling me the same thing. How can we outsource our process or our services from a known outsourcing destination and move our operations to an unknown outsourcing destination to you that is inexperienced. So after going live, what we've done to even go live was to prove them wrong, in the sense that we brought in the best people. So we looked at India, we looked at Philippines, we looked at what they're doing, and we tried to make ours different. So we provided America with an American accent, and we provided UK with UK accent, and that's how we got started. So when we started with those 10, we changed the business model entirely. So we looked at, yes, India and Philippines, that is our biggest competition. We realized that they go into a vendor-client relationship with their client, meaning that their client outsource one person per seat. And we realized that if we change it and go into a full-blown partnership where we focus on our client growth, we focus on reducing cost and increasing revenue. That way we understand their business plan, and we decide how we can take them to achieve that business plan. So I will also advise you to do the same thing. Look at what the market is doing, how you can differentiate yourself, which is what we have done. So within a very short time, all those clients that we have outsourced 10 seats, 2 seats, are now moving operations from India and Philippines, and we are beating the performance of this different destinations. So we actually stood out in the sense that we changed the business model. We created a performance base where we are focused on our clients and their growth. And this is how we're able to scale within a very short time. So we looked at their revenue and say, this is where you want to get to. We can actually take away this skill set from you and provide it in Nigeria, which will allow you to reduce cost and increase your bottom line. So we are currently providing lawyers for the US market. We do medical records, we do AI as a service, we do customer service. So we are able to grow because of just that change of model, where our focus is actually our client growth, which is different from what other companies or other destinations are providing, which is vendor-client relationship. They just provide the service and that's it. So if you look at your operations and see how you can optimize the service that you're offering, and look at what other people are doing and try to increase performance and focus on that performance drive, you will actually scale within a very short time. What we've done in terms of performance is we try to understand data, which is what you started doing in the beginning, and you said it didn't work. So if we're working and we're using this process, how is it impacting the business? So for every process you introduce, I don't want to spend so much time. I don't know if I'm talking way after over my time. So every process we introduce, we actually read the data and see the impact it is making on the business. That has helped us to see whatever we introduce, if it's working, and if it's not working, we quickly change it. So basically, that's what we have done to scale, and we are still scaling. We scaled within a very short time after going live. I don't know if I was able to answer your question.